Hello, everybody. Richard Tremens here, chair of the Legal Innovators Conference. We're holding the conference this year in California, June 11th and 12th. And with us is one of our speakers, Megan Marple. Hey, Megan, great to have you with us.
Richard, thanks for having me.
For those who don't know you already, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what will be one of the key subjects you'll be talking about?
Sure. So I'm the associate director at the Stanford Center for Legal Informatics, or we call it CodeX. We're a research center that's a little bit quirky. We are housed at the law school, but are actually a joint initiative between law and computer science. And so, as I always say, we do a little bit of the law of technology side, but our focus is actually building technology for law. So the inverse of what a lot of research centers at the law school typically you'll see. I think for this conference, as with some of the maybe in the past that I've teased, I think a lot of our focal point of our research is now in this area of legal education and professional development of lawyers. I think what we're seeing is just rapid exponential development in this kind of technology. And not only is it a legal AI renaissance, I would say it's very much kind of reaching into a space of most law firms are thinking about ways of integrating generative AI one way or another. While we still see maybe some variation in adoption, we're definitely seeing a lot of uptake and thinking about use cases for the technology. And with that being said, what is slightly probably also top of mind for most lawyers and a pain point that we've heard personally ourselves is how do we prepare our current and next generation of lawyers from associates, from law students into the experts that we all know and well? How do you get them to the partner level? So much of our work right now in our research is actually thinking about the co-creation of these tools with law firms,
Mm.
as well as law schools, finding ways to leverage generative AI precisely for the education space. So we've, for example, built a number of simulators and in the areas of negotiation, deposition, cross-examination, and more. And so I think for this conference, we'll be talking a little bit about how we're focusing very heavily on applied AI and particularly working closely with law firm innovation teams to make these a reality.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, what you're doing goes across both sides, both the education and then the actual implementation and use of the AI itself in the workflows. I mean, are you getting into the other side as well? So actually helping the law firms to sort of roll out AI products into their workflows?
Moment, it's sort of yes or no. So we're because we are a research center, we're not really in a kind of consultancy space necessarily. But what we are kind of interested in is now that we have tools or now that we have explored the possibility of these tools, what matters is the evaluation of determining whether or not they're effective. And so we've been working to see if we could do pilot programs, both at law schools as well as with law firms, where we create almost like a randomized control trial or like a clinical trial where you have a cohort of associates that don't get access to the simulators that we've built and then another cohort that are getting access to the simulators and then determining whether or not one group with the simulators is actually picking up the nuances that a senior associate or a partner would have but at a much faster rate. For example, the negotiation simulator, we call it Deal Mentor. Basically, the idea of that is we want to capture like how do you actually client get engaged with clients, and how do you actually then take what you had engaged with the clients to optimize for their deal as you interact with opposing counsel. Um, we've been really lucky to be able to work with Flatiron Legal or Flatiron Law. And the partners, Leonard and Conrad, they've been sort of seminal to how we've been able to shape some of these nuances and again capture the experiential knowledge side.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that this is an area that's just going to grow and grow. I mean, my view is that, as more, and we're not there yet, but as more, you might say, entry level work, more of that becomes automated, or a significant portion of that becomes automated, then how do you train the lawyers? And the standard thing is, oh, it's easy, they'll just rise up and do more complicated work.
Mhm.
But that doesn't make any sense. Like if you're an
Yeah.
electrician and you don't learn the basics, you don't say, right, off you go, there's a nuclear power station.
Right.
Why don't you try and figure that out?
Right, right. Yeah,
You've got to learn the basics. And so how are they going to do it?
yeah, an anecdote I often share is that I've had the chance of being able to speak with a law firm that was an early adopter of one of these really high profile legal AI tools, some of the earliest generations of them. And by earliest generations, I mean like a year and a half ago, something like that.
Mhm.
And we had spoken with, or at least I had spoken with a junior associate, a partner, and a senior associate on their use of this particular tool. The junior associate and the partner's response was exactly polar. So the partner says, it's great, it's really forward, like we're really excited about what it's going to do for our law firm in terms of questions of efficiency and augmenting sort of our lawyers. Um, and I asked the partner, do you use it? And they're like, well, I'm already at a certain level of expertise that I don't necessarily need this type of assistance. And so I thought it was kind of interesting because then I spoke with a junior associate and they said they literally cannot do anything without this tool. Like
Hmm.
their workflow starts with opening up this platform and kind of drafting a contract immediately from it.
Hmm.
And so the most fascinating sort of response I got then was from the senior associate of this firm, and they somewhat furrowed their brows when I asked, what did they think about adoption of this tool? And
Hmm.
they said, well, it's certainly helping my billables. And I said, why? And they're like, well,
Hmm.
I spend most
Interesting.
of my time actually editing the work of our junior associates because they have not gotten the training or the right training to do that issue spotting that they were supposed to because of the volumes of work we traditionally give them. And so like after that experience, I think it was a huge motivator for me personally
Hmm.
and our research team to think about the education and the professional training side. How do you kind of download the brains of partners so that these young associates could get to those basics? They could kind of come out of, being an electrician and actually figure out how to then work at a nuclear power plant or something like that. So this transfer of knowledge is something that is really, really significant for us.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and also the way it connects. And it's nice that you mentioned that, with the economic model, the business model of law firms. And it's interesting that the more senior people were spending time correcting the work of the juniors.
Right.
It's yeah, it's. I mean, have you picked up anything about are people starting to say, well, again, we're not there yet, but down the line, we are going to have to tweak our business model a little bit, at least for certain types of work. Is that kind of coming through like osmosis?
We certainly have heard it,
Mm,
quite often. And I think there's two sides of it. There's like conversations where, the most high profile partners, they have sort of they possess, the Rolodex where their clients, no matter what, have leaned into that trust with them. And so they may not necessarily feel the pressure of the billable model changing. On the other hand, you have, clients that are at a certain level of maturity in thinking about the technology where actually they're asserting pressure to their law firms or any of the firms that they work with to say, hey, I think that we have been adopting this technology, especially from the in-house counsel side, for example. We have significantly cut, what is necessary for outside counsel to do. And so we can also, in a way, like fact check almost or verify actually, is this the number of hours that we expect from a particular legal work product? And I think in the past, we haven't been able to create this evaluation scheme almost. And so
mm,
we're certainly seeing clients say, like, I expect this number of hours, maybe give or take plus or minus two, but nothing more. Like if I expect 2 hours, I'm not going to pay for 10. And, we've heard, pressures as well from clients for a while saying, like, we don't want to have first year associates doing or the work as part of their training anyway. And now it's gotten to second year associates or maybe third year associates. And as that other side of pressure that's existed pre Gen AI, I think this is only an accelerator in many cases.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one. I mean, I've been hearing that for like 20 years. That, we don't want to pay to train the junior lawyers, but I guess
Right.
the law firms went, well, what are we going to do? There's no alternative. But now, of course, there is an
Right.
alternative. There's an alternative both in the production and there's an alternative in the education. So that
Mhm.
changes the game a little bit. Just one last
Yeah.
question before talking about the conference. In terms of the in-house side of things, the general counsel, legal ops, and so forth. Are you detecting a change there as well as the law firms? Are they getting more on board?
I certainly think so. There are, legal AI companies that have built their entire sort of target user for the in-house counsel and for the GCs, the CLOs, because I think there's a rising interest for the GC or the CLO to actually be part of the strategic development of the firm. In the past, they're sort of viewed as, the risk hedgers, right? They're risk management. But how do you kind of flip that and it becomes strategy management? And so a lot of these tools are giving them the foresight as well as like a number of, predictive mechanisms. It's expanding sort of the opportunity for them to have a larger role in the company themselves. So I think beyond sort of resources internally where in-house counsel, if they're smaller teams or, they're pressed for certain types of talent, they can augment it using these tools. It's also augmenting their specific role in a company as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard something similar to that in the UK. Enabling them to move up and add
Mhm.
value. Because that's the thing. I mean, in-house, they don't have the billable model, obviously, and
Mhm.
any time saving goes into being able to do things that are more important. Because even sometimes quite large organizations have relatively small internal in-house legal teams. So yeah, so much to explore, so much to explore. For people who are interested, many of the things, well, in fact, pretty much everything we've just discussed will be discussed in more detail across the 2 days, the June the 11th, June the 12th. June the 11th is for law firms primarily, and June the 12th is focused on in-house, but you're welcome to come to both. Um, just to wrap up, Megan, I mean, you've spoken before, and it's been great to have you there. I mean, what do you like about Legal Innovators California?
Yeah, so Legal Innovators has a special place in my heart because I was there for the first ever one that you held, Richard,
Hmm?
and have been there since. But actually, Legal Innovators is where I met some of our really, core partners, Leonard and Conrad from Flatiron Law. And it was there that we developed actually a very, very strong collaboration and partnership with them. So it's a place where I think, a lot of the community actually, finds a place to share, the lessons that they've been observing or some, even um, formation of different types of collaboration. It's also where, I met, last year I met Alona there. And so some of the speakers that you have, they're not only good friends, but they're also, people that I think I'm constantly inspired by. So I'm excited again for this iteration of the conference.
Fantastic. And we're very excited to have you speak there as well. So thank you very much, Megan. And just to say, if you would like to purchase the tickets, go along to the website. The details will be down here under the video. And if I don't see you before, see you in California. Thank you.
Please.